Fred Lybrand, wife Jody, she'll be here in just a sec. We, in this segment, talk about homeschooling, family, parenting, all kinds of things. And our goal is to gain insight, ideally from one another, but certainly share what we've learned over, 35 years of parenting and homeschooling and working with homeschoolers, etc. So what I like to do is I like to share with you a idea, a thought, an insight, and then we take questions or we make up questions. So either way, tell us where you're from and tell us if the sound is good, and start gathering your questions together. But today I want to talk to you, as I wrote in the email. If you get our emails from independenthomeschool.com, we remind you of these things. And for some reason, my software didn't work, probably my error. But I wanted to talk to you about wisdom and how do you grow wisdom, maybe in yourself, in your children, perhaps in others that you mentor or work with. And growing wisdom is really important and powerful. And so I want to walk you through a way to think about it. So the first thing you want to do is you want to define wisdom. What is wisdom? Well, I would call it, the short version, I'd say it's living awake. Most people, it seems to me, are largely asleep. What we're trying to do is wake up. And specifically, it's about the results of life choices. So wisdom is about the results of life choices. I'd say it this way: knowing what happens is largely going to be from your life choices. So with your kids, yourself, employees, it doesn't matter who it is. It's understanding. Wisdom is about, you make a choice and things likely happen. That's the nature of the game. So when you think about wisdom and living it or teaching it, you want to think about sorting through what the choices are to come. This is why we had our kids all learn chess, because if they could think 2 or 3 moves ahead, gosh, where's the competition anymore? So that was the idea. But I want to tell you a number of points. There are like 6 of them here. The first is to define it, right? So defining it is, wisdom is knowing that what happens largely comes from choices. That's basically the game. Number 2 is it's important to value fear. So follow me on this. I know fear's not a good thing, but it sort of is. When you or I fear the right things, that's where wisdom shows up. Foolishness is fearing something wrong. Get to that, but it goes like this. What we fear when we're wise is we're actually fearing being rejected by success. So wisdom is afraid of choices that will lead to something bad, or afraid of not making the choices that will lead to something good, something successful, meaning it turns out how you want, not some idea of success in the world, but just a thing of how you want it to go, right? So when you're wise, you fear being rejected by success. When you're a fool, you fear being rejected by other fools. And that's how it goes. So when people get concerned or obsessed about what others think, especially other fools, if you're in a gang, you don't want to be rejected by your gang buddies. I don't mean really a legitimate gang, but that too. So your behavior is predicated on making sure they approve of you. And it's weird that we even want approval from people who don't actually approve of themselves. But if you want the approval of other fools, you're standing in the path of foolishness, because you don't have a way to get yourself to make the right decisions. You're going to just look for other people and their theories and ideas. This morning I was at a coffee shop, and a little girl came in. She's wearing her cheerleading outfit, and she was probably 12. She's very young, so middle school or something like that. And she was looking at these she had permission to get a coffee mug to buy one. And she was doing this one and putting one down up, whatever. And she was very near me. And I looked at her and I said, hey, just go with your heart. What do you like? Don't worry about what everybody's going to think. And the one she looked at, she put it down and she quickly grabbed this other one and walked off happily, or scared of me, one of the two. But that was sort of the right, I think, direction for her, because she was having quite a tough time deciding. So, and I don't think she wanted my approval, because she didn't say, hey, is this the one? She could tell it like, yeah, that's the one I want. So great for her. That's the game, is understanding these consequences happen and doing what you want for things to turn out well. So there are kind of three components. This is 3, 4, and 5. So in wisdom, you've got to have knowledge. You got to know some stuff. You have to have information, proper information. And it ties with point number 4, which is you need to understand cause and effect. You, your kids, your employee, it doesn't matter. So if you have the right kind of knowledge, and like, it's like knowing how it works, so you know things about it, and then cause and effect. If I do this, it'll hit that. The book of Proverbs will talk about things about being foolish by yanking on a dog's ear. So yanking on a dog's ear. How does it work? So dogs have ears, they feel pain, they have teeth very near their ears. They don't like yanking on their ears. Most dogs don't. And so as a result, you can probably see that you're going to get bit. So that's that's sort of the game. You need knowledge, and you need cause and effect, how it goes. And then the last thing, or those three, point number 5 would be about feeling good. So my understanding is human beings do things to feel good, either by avoiding something bad or by achieving something good. So in thinking it through, the results of life choices, you want to think about, will this feel good? And if you can get yourself clear, it will feel good. You're in a new place, So alcoholics don't quit drinking because they think it will feel worse if they quit drinking. People who quit drinking think it will feel good to not drink. So they finally get in their mind that there's a new path, a better path. Same with smoking, same with anything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 4 questions, then I'll be done. And this would be where you want to come back and listen again, or if you have pen and paper, you might want to write these down, because if you'll go over these questions with yourself, with other people, with kids, it's pretty on target for applying wisdom. So here's how they go. Number 1, what are you thinking about doing? You can ask somebody or yourself. What are you thinking about doing? Sorry, my OCD is kicking in. What are you thinking about doing? So there's that question, right? Number 2, how does it work? So what do you think about doing, whatever their decision or thing they're thinking about? And then you ask, how does it work? And see if they can understand, this is the way this thing tends to go. I'm going to give you some examples. Number 3, what will probably happen? So like, if you take this action, what's probably going to happen? And 4, how will you feel? I remember my son, one of my 4, was involved with a girl. He was 16 or so. And I was talking about, what are y'all thinking? You ready for marriage? No, but she's going to go to school. I'm going to go to school after college. Then we'll get married, et cetera, et cetera. And I just invited him to think it through. How's this going to go? Where's it going to go? Her family, her life, your life, different schools, et cetera. And in the course of a day of thinking that through, next thing I knew, he went and he broke off the relationship. And that actually turned out incredibly wise. He has a wife, 3 kids now, and doing glorious, and loves her. Much better match for him, at least in my opinion. I think in his too, and her and his wife's opinion. And this other gal, she's married, so I want to know, and that's all going well. So this is part of the wisdom game. So what are you thinking about doing? How does it work? What will probably happen? And how will you feel? So let's think about things. So you have a child that has complains about doing school or has tantrums. So what are you thinking about doing? Continuing fighting with me and crying and being upset about studying or doing what I asked you to do? Yes, get that out in the open. So how does it work? So you cry and get upset, and then what do? I let you never do school, let you out of it. And you get them to think it through, like, how does this thing work? Then what's probably going to happen if you keep doing the tantrum, right? Complaining, I'll get in trouble or whatever. Yeah, or you'll waste several hours. I hear these stories, several hours of your day. You're not going to get to play in the afternoon. Can't go on with life, etc. And then when you think that through, like, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to do my work. That probably what will happen then I'll get through earlier. And then how are you going to feel? Last question. How will you feel? And you'll probably feel pretty good. Got your work done, you get to play. How about just specifically learning math? I don't want to learn math. Okay. You're thinking about not doing the math and not learning it for the rest of your life. Is that right? Right. So how does that work? Yeah. So you don't do math, and what our response is going to be is to get you to work on math, but then you're not going to know math. You're not going to be able to do other grades. There are a lot of jobs that involve math, never mind STEM stuff. There's just some basic math. Usually got to hit a calculator or registry or something, take money. What's probably going to happen if you don't learn math? You'll be left behind. School will slow down. You have to go over math again. They'll start you over in another math thing. Or if you learn math, how will it go? You'll just keep progressing, learn a little more, and you'll eventually get good at math. And how will you feel? Either way. So that's the idea. Starting a new business, same idea. Or applying for a new job, what are you thinking of doing? Starting this business. How does it work? I'm going to do this and this and this, and maybe you have a plan or maybe you don't. Maybe it's a good plan. And then you can go, what will probably happen? And if you can think that through and it's a good thing, you'll say, how you feel? You feel great. I did it. Or applied for the job. Well, I applied for the job and they might turn me down. Right. But it's guaranteed they'll turn you down if you don't apply. So when you think this through, how you feel if you get that new job? Feel great. If you tried for the job, didn't get it, how will you feel? Well, I'll be disappointed, but you can think through, I will have learned some about interviewing, learn what I need to work on, something like that. So, and most of us go, at least I tried. That'll be awesome. Moms, now let me pick on you. How about spontaneous homeschool? So every day you get up, and homeschool is just going to be something new every day. We're going to see. We're going to get around to it then. We're going to do it later. We're going to do it earlier. We're going to do this because we're going there, or we're going to go there and see if we can do any schoolwork later, maybe by night. Well, what do you think about doing spontaneous every day? How does it work? How does it work for kids to learn a little here, a little there, jump back, come back? How does that work, especially on the book academic side, like reading, writing, and arithmetic? And then we ask, what will probably happen? And what will probably happen if you keep doing spontaneous things? Your kids aren't going to learn that stuff. They may learn other great things, lessons about life, etc., but just know what you're facing. And if they don't learn how to read, how to do math well, how to write well, how to read well, how to communicate, other things that go with it, how are you going to feel? And when you go through those questions, you can get clearer on a better plan, a better understanding of how it works. Because education really works by reap as you sow. You do some more, you do some more, and it builds up knowledge and understanding and skill sets, what we care about the most. So there's the idea on how to grow wisdom. Hope you find that helpful. Now, let me shift over here. Jody will be in a sec. And let me see. I see a chat. I don't see any questions yet. So I'll throw that out there. Here she comes. These glasses. See. So I just walked through some wisdom stuff.
Yeah, I heard your 4 questions.
Did you like them? I never
Yeah.
showed them to you. I mean, I sort of do that stuff, don't
Oh yeah,
I? Good. So how are you?
good.
Let's see if I can get you in the picture. Should get you in the picture.
Hey everybody, happy Friday.
Yep. And not quite in the picture. Wonder why the picture looks shorter.
Oh, this. We bump our chairs together. Sorry.
Maybe I need a different. Why is this so small? Oh, I see. Oh, and I double see. So it's chat. So what kind of questions you have? What's going on in life? What's going on? What challenging things? I don't get tired of old questions, like new ones. It's all great. I don't know how to get that chat to go away. So, but we're in the picture. So what kind of things are going on? What are you interested in talking about? What are you wrestling with? What do you want to discuss? What do you want to know about? Switch back over to the chat. See, I know we have a thumbs up. We got folks watching, so it's all good. We have, questions. I do think the wisdom conversation is a big deal. Somehow we've got you need to lean in a little bit if you can. We've got a block on the screen. I don't really understand it. But that's the way it goes. So what kind of questions do you encounter? Anything this week?
I have not, but it did remind me I need to call someone that mentioned they needed some help. Somebody I met at church.
Yeah, so we did get a note today from someone, and she was describing that she has an 8-year-old and like 17 kids under them. I think it was 6, and she's expecting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
right.
They're all boom, 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 but the oldest is 8.
Yeah, so the oldest is 8. She was wrestling with something called, just talking about dictating and then copy work, etc. And she was just wondering how that stuff works. And in large measure, as I looked at it, I don't quite understand the dictation idea. I looked up, and there's some like Pearson English use thing, and they'll dictate and write things down, and that may indeed be a skill that's worthwhile, maybe note taking or something. I've never thought about it that much because largely what we're trying to do with writing is get them to get comfortable with words. And it does turn into a dictation thing because we teach kids to write and punctuate. So when someone reads it aloud, it's going to sound like what's going on in their head. So they've got this interaction going on with language. But for the most part, even at 8, that they can start writing. A reasonably smart 8-year-old, for sure 9-year-old, can start writing some of their own sentences. And a lot of times we make it too big a deal. It might just be a series of sentences, not a whole story or paragraph or whatever else. But copy work is great. But I have a suggestion on copy work. Give them copy work, if you can, that's meaningful to them or they'll understand. So it might be age appropriate, it might be sections of books they like, it might be some good quotes from something. It's not as complex. There are a lot of quotes out there back in the old days, quotes from the 1800s or so, especially before 1850, because English language kind of got stabilized more or less then. But you can go back and like all the titles of books are an inquiry into the superficial understanding of the negative and positive realities of simplifying and oversimplifying grammatical nuances in the discussion of lizards and birds. That's about how they go. You go back and read these things, and it's just wackadoodle. So meaningful copy work. I mean, just copy work is great. In fact, irrational copy work would be pretty cool, because then they're just really having to copy. But if it's meaningful, they're doing things in their mind that are helpful too. So hope that helps. All right, Beth throws out, did you have a reference for these are the most important things the child has to know by the end of middle school, and use that to judge success? I feel a little panicky. I understand that. When I see all the knowledge my child needs to gain, I feel behind and want to focus our time on the most important. So great question. Now, the way I would encourage you to think about is not about knowledge. It's about skills, because knowledge you can add relatively quickly. But skills take time. So a skill set would be something on the order of how well do they read and comprehend? Skill sets on the order of how well are they doing their math? Are they getting the foundational and up to the point? Do they understand everything that came before? In writing, it's a skill development. Are they facile with words? Do they come easy? Can they make a sentence make sense, which means you can make a paragraph make sense? Are they developing good skill just with legibility, capitals, after periods, etc.? And so if you think with that skill mindset, once they develop these skills, they can teach themselves anything. The goal is to raise happy adults, and the goal is to actually have kids who can teach what they need to do. I mean, most of us are going to have several careers in our life. You have to re-educate yourself. So it's a skill game. And the way I would encourage you to think about it, rather than panicky, is about progress. How are they doing compared to last week or last month? Are we actually getting better? Is there improvement engaged? Because that's going to ultimately be the measure. And if you're doing school, in several hours, we did 5 hours a day, and we did math on Saturdays. And I assure you, our kids were way ahead of their peers by the time they were in 9th grade or so, 8th grade, something like that. They may have been ahead before, but we know for a fact, because they attended school for a little bit and found out all they did is tutored their friends, and they just wanted the social interaction. The school was going too slow for them. So they got out of school and made a deal to come up at lunchtime once a week. Because I taught at the school at the time. So they had some privilege, I guess. But yeah, it's not, you do want to test, you do want to measure, make sure they're on course somehow. But mostly it's about a constant progression. Are they constantly getting better? And I wouldn't say constant. I'd be careful with that word, constant improvement. More like consistent improvement. So you're checking in regularly with some kind of test, some kind of understanding, getting them to explain a book they've read to you, etc. Let them read out loud. See if they're reading better aloud than they did a week or so ago. And let me tell you, that'll come in so handy. I was in a Bible study this week, and there were 6, 7 of us. And we had to read some passages out loud. I'm sitting there going, okay, who wants to read? And somebody starts getting out their phone to kick an app on to read the passage out loud. And somebody else said,
You did not tell me this.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, that's sad.
I just said, I'll read it. I didn't even say it. I just started reading it. Because, come on. But most people are scared of reading aloud, and especially Bible. If it's Old Testament, you have Benadab and Rashibabab and Dibadoo, all that stuff. But most of us are just glad we're not the ones reading. But your child, practice that. It's a skill that will come in very handy throughout life.
Just kind of a side of that question.
You can correct me.
No. Just going off, just back to just some real practical, like if you're thinking about putting your kid into school at some point, then obviously you need to know what the school's system says they need to be up to, because if you don't want them to go backwards. So find that out if you're thinking about putting them into high school or something. And then what we did too, as they got, this might not be your question, but as they were getting in the high school years, I looked online at what the colleges, the basic college acceptance would be. What they need, they need this many credits in English, this many credits in history, and could backtrack for us to kind of program it out to where they will have gotten that, just so I could fill out a basic college transcript.
Yeah, and part of the trick there is actually working from the end, kind of reiterate what you're saying, which is if you want to figure out what you think your child should know by a certain point, we'll make sure that happens. Throw the reading at them, etc. All of our kids and Jody and I could certainly move to a new state, and I could read 2 books, 3 books on the state history. And after that, I'll know more about that state than most of the people I'll ever meet. That's just the way knowledge is. Once you have the skill, you can just learn it. It's not formidable in that regard. So anyway,
Right.
hope that helps. Or if there's a follow-up question,
yeah,
shoot it. So Kristen, who we know, probably, she says, probably should know by now, but I struggle to get my 9-year-old to have a good attitude about doing school when he doesn't want to. How to motivate him to do what needs to be done. And his attitude seems to be rubbing off on his younger 5-year-old. Well, they're already teaming up to resist. I mean, that's just part of the heart of most kids, somewhere or another in there. So motivation of these kids, 9-year-olds, etc. If the way I look at it in that book, can you have that yellow book? See this book? So wrote it forever ago, right? But still seems to hold up. You put it back there in front of the preaching. Yeah, there you go. And the idea there is you look at what in the world is going on, and you ask yourself a question like, how did I teach you that? So if I had a 9-year-old that was grumpy, I'd say, how am I teaching you to be grumpy and not like school? Let me use the exact words here. Good attitude, bad attitude, because I'm going to predict you're accidentally not, well, you are teaching, but you're reinforcing, you're encouraging, you're rewarding the bad attitude. Sometimes that's because a kid does not know what you want or what it's to look like. But really, the game in their head is a child wants to feel good, just like adults. And you can feel good 2 ways. One, by achieving something that you want, getting something you want, or pursuing it. And the other is by avoiding something negative. So like the earlier wisdom stuff that I just went over, with the 9-year-old, I would even with a 9-year-old sit down and just have a discussion. It'd go like this. I'd say, so you're 9, you're a child, you belong in this family. Someday you're going to get out and be an adult and do your life like you want to, and that'll all be great. But that's not what we're doing here. So your attitude is going to end. I promise you it's going to end. We just don't know how much pain you're going to go through for it to end, because you're not going to go through life having a bad attitude with teachers and Sunday school teachers and bosses and in traffic and,
waiting in
line to get your driver's license. You're not going to go through life not knowing how to run your attitude. So this is something you're just not very good at, that we're going to have to learn. And the way we're going to do this is, if you, when you have a bad attitude, you're going to have a consequence. And I'm going to start by asking them, what do you think we should do if you have a bad attitude? What are your ideas? I always do this to my kids. Their treatments were much harsher than mine. But it's like, do we send you to your room? Does that delay school until you get a good attitude? We did that with kids. It's dependent on the child themselves. So if a child likes to be in the room, sometimes that's not a good move. Would you rather do house chores until you get a good attitude about school? because that's probably a good one. So you can have a bad attitude while you sweep the garage, right? Or you can have a good attitude while you do school. But that's going to be your choice, because this is over. And we're just going to figure out how long it's going to take for you to figure it out. On the positive side, I'd throw in something like, if you have a good attitude, like, I don't know how long they can concentrate, but 3 days in a row, or let's say a whole week, 5 days in a row, you're going to get, I don't know, something cool, whatever it would be. It might be a day off school, maybe that big. It might be a special dessert. It might be,
Extra screen time.
extra screen time, go somewhere with
something that would
dad.
motivate
I don't
that
know what it
kid.
is. Whatever
But
would
don't
motivate
start
that
too
kid.
big.
Yeah, because you can escalate it.
Yeah.
But something that would make sense. Because here's the trick, Kristen, and this is the trick, okay? This isn't to last forever. It's literally to take the child through an experience so that once he's through it, the gig's up. He gets it, that he can control his attitude, and you get it, that you've seen him control his attitude. So they know they can do it. I mean, the greater part of courage is having done it before, as Emerson would say, and as I like to quote. And so getting them engaged and making a choice about what would make them feel good. You could even ask that question, how can we get you to feel good about doing school? And they'll probably say, nothing, but maybe something, I don't know. It seems to me that if we set up a good game with the kids and they're learning, they're going to feel good. I've mentioned this before. And if they get their work done in time so they can play and do other things they like to do, they feel good about that too. But the whole process is not, we're not in a negotiation. We're not in a discussion. This isn't a thing that you're going to win. This is going to be you learning to have a good attitude. Now, let me explain what a good attitude looks like. I'd add this. It means saying, yes, ma'am, if you're a Southerner. It means quietly doing your work. It means being able to look at your work and say to yourself, I don't feel like doing this. Oh, well, and then do it. It means being a good example to your 5-year-old brother. It means smiling. It means not going, it means, and you describe to them exactly what you want it to be. And we like to kind of run that play to get it right from football, practice it. So let's practice bad attitude, bad attitude. What's your bad attitude? You got your math out. I'll pick on math. And so do it and get them to do it. Good. Now, what would be good attitude? Okay, I'm getting going. Here I go. Yay team. One problem down. And sometimes I like to show kids, how many problems do you have and where are you? I got 10 problems and where are you? I'm on problem 1. Okay. So that's what you got to do. And when do you have to get it done by? And we have a time limit. And so they have a vision. I'll say, hey, I'm going to come back in 5 minutes and see how many you got done. Ready, go. And then I come back and they knocked out 5 of them. This is not going to take near the time I thought it was, because they're focused. I don't know how much those things help, but I think they're a good start. You might go back through some of our videos and talk about motivation a good bit, but that's the way to go. But more fundamental is your mindset, which is not something's wrong with my child, but something's wrong with the way I'm structuring the world around the child, such that his complaining seems to be what makes him feel good. And why? Does it get out of stuff? Is it control? I don't know. The other thing is, I would add all this conversation, ideally, if you're married, have a partner, if there are 2 of you, us and them, 2 adults, mom and dad, ideally, if you can sit down and have this conversation together so that y'all are united front, because a lot of times kids, you may not notice this, they sort of like to divide and conquer. And so getting both all on the team is a great way to go. Also, I found writing up that deal, like 5 days and you get this and whatever, and put it in the refrigerator, is a pretty clear reminder about the process and the steps to follow. So, that was a bunch of stuff. Is that helpful at all? Oh, she said, wonderful. Thank you so much. Awesome. And the 5-year old ought to be at the edge of wanting to do things right. And maybe you need to talk to the 5-year-old about being a good example to his older brother. So, you really don't want to go through that. I didn't. I called it my zigzag theory. I watched my brother do dumb things, and I went, I ain't doing that. So I did the opposite. But my sister, sort of rebellious, didn't want to be like me. So she did the opposite of me, which means she acted like my brother. Not a good move. But it's the way it goes. Excellent. So what other burning questions are in your head? Anything you want to add to all that? I've kind of jabbered a long time.
One thing I was thinking about, and you're going to be able to put this together better than it's just rattling in my brain a little bit. There's a difference in when Fred talks about feeling good about something, that doesn't mean that your kid has to go, I love math and I love reading and I love, it's not a
yeah, some people, for example, don't love writing, but they love to have written. So those people are more about the end product service. Others are about the process. I'm more of a process person. I like the end product. By the time I get through it, I need another end product to work on. So figuring that out.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking your life, as y'all all know, is not all, isn't this great? Isn't this one? It's, hey, I feel good that I got done what I needed to do, was supposed to do for my job, for my college, for my family, as a mother, as a wife. And it's feeling good about those kinds of things. It doesn't mean you have to bribe your kid into loving everything or everything has to be fun. And, the Sesame Street, quick and fun and happy. And
yeah,
that's
so
thinking.
Fun. That's a really good thought. Fun is good. Fun's fun. But most humans, what really tends to drive us is something that's meaningful. And to some degree, they want control. So when a child understands, if I get to work and get it done, I get to be through and do other stuff. So it's kind of in their control. So that's a good thing. And it's meaningful to get to the next thing out there, to eat lunch or whatever it is. And that's fine too. We also feel good by avoiding a negative. Like I said, look, here's how we do. Everybody's allowed to have a bad attitude whenever they're sweeping the garage. Okay. And the garage, if it gets too clean, I'll just put some dirt out so it's meaningful to you. But that's really sort of the game. Like, I'm avoiding that task. And so that makes me feel good. I'm avoiding bankruptcy. That makes me feel good. Right. So avoiding something can feel good, and achieving something can feel good. And if you get them both together, it's golden, basically.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's the idea. So Beth adds, love all of this, trying to think of questions you covered in the past, but so appreciate the info. Well, I appreciate you appreciating it. Did you, and in some ways I was reading something this morning, when we don't give to people stuff we know and have in terms of what we've learned or help, it's like stealing from them. A lot of this stuff we all do with each other is a generosity to give. It's not, Jody and I are not getting rich or anything from doing any of this stuff, but it's meaningful to us because, if we can, you don't have to experience everything you in life. You could just watch somebody else and avoid that or follow it much faster, smoother, quicker. So did you have a way of encouraging your kids to have good hygiene, brushing teeth, showering regularly, etc.? So I'm going to confess, we have a friend who for a long time had some sequenced rhyme, like
a little jingle.
Yeah, like brush, flush, flop. I don't know. It was something getting in bed. It had a little jingle to it. And I guess that's fine when they're little, but these kids were like 10, 11, 12, and they're still doing it. So I would say they hadn't learned. They're dependent on you. Learning means they can do it themselves, right? You want them to be independent learners. So you're trying to teach them so they do it themselves. I've known people that wrote papers for their kids in college. No, that's how I'd say that. Um, so hygiene. Talk about hygiene, Miss Hygiene.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I know people have this issue. I don't recall us having problems with it, but I'm probably just not remembering right. I think it's, training from when they're little, obviously, that this is what we do regularly and how we do it. I do remember, sideline, one of our kids, they would usually shower like in the morning, but one of their friends said, "Oh, you go to bed dirty." So then we had this whole thing about whether you shower at night or in the morning. That's a little.
But part of the trick with us is we were growing and developing obedient children. So that was a real crucial thing, that we wanted one-time obedience. If you do this thing that says, all right, I'm going to count to 5, and then you count to 5. And do you want me to come over there? And then, you get in this thing. I mean, count to 5, count to 1, count to a half. What does it matter? Like, if a child is about to walk into the street and you say stop, and they've learned obedience, instant obedience, they stop and they don't get hurt, right? If they rebel and fight with you all the way. So we practice that too. Like, this is a first time obedience. Go do it. As you get older, we have less rules. We're more of a coaching role. You're on your own, etc. But we need you to do this thing. And so if we said, go make your bed, or if we said, take a shower, or if we said something, there wasn't much more that was going to go on with that. If there was, I think we're going to have a problem. Now, we did have a child that tended to hide plates of food in their room late in
high school.
Yeah, in high school, something like that. So things like that, they figure
they weren't
out.
perfect.
No, not at all. But you supply them with what they need. This is what we do. It's what we do. We brush our teeth before bed. It's what we do. This is what we do. And what we're going to do is do whatever we have to do until we don't have to think about it anymore. It's just part of the process. This isn't a decision. And a lot of homeschooling, I want to stress this. You need to get out of making decisions, and the children need to get out of making decisions, because decisions are exhausting. They're a point of conflict. The more we just follow a system and a process, this is what we do. We're doing this half of a lesson a day. We're doing this thing. You're reading this many pages, whatever. That's just what we do. It's what we do day in, day out. Sorry, we do a lot of other things. We come home at night. We sleep at night. We're up during the day. That's one of the things we do. We feed the dog. That's one of the things we do. We cut the grass. That's the thing we do. And these are just things we do. They're not negotiations. They're not decisions. They're in the process. It's just what we do. Just like when you get on a plane, there are things you do. You get in line, you go in order, you find your seat. You don't make mom threats. You don't kick the seat in front of you. Well,
and I was just back to also how we were answering the question before this. If little kids, yes, you're in there, you're helping them brush their teeth and all, but when they're able to do that on their own, and they know this is what you do, and when you do it, whether it's showering, brushing teeth, whatever it is, then just go back to, we're going to show you what we expect from you. We're going to tell you what you expect. I'm not going to remind you to go brush your teeth every night. I'm not going to remind you to take a shower, but I am going to punish you. If I find out that you're not doing these things, there will be a consequence. That way the kid know, we're not going to remind them. That's what age appropriate. They know how. And
let me stress something. So Jody brings up something about consequence. Look, parenting is about bringing in artificial consequences so they can learn. That's what it is. If you don't do that, as we say, God takes your child on a field trip when they move out of the house, and then the world will give them consequences. And sometimes those are really bad. You just want to learn younger and understand that's the game. And the world works that way. Reality doesn't negotiate.
There was one time I was in a situation where I saw a high school kid doing something kind of yucky and gross with their face, with their nose. And they were doing it over and over again in church. And I was like, okay, should I talk to this mom? This is a high school, person. I felt sad for them. And I finally mentioned it to the mom, and she goes, oh yeah, I know he does that. And I was just like, oh, this is not good. Teach him not to do that.
Yeah, that's an odd thing that we tend to have, which is, well, that's how they are. It's their personality, etc. Let me tell you, they've done longitudinal studies on personality, and which means like 14 years old to 77 years old, and there's almost no correlation. Personality is not a fixed thing. It's not, you might have a bent, you might have a motivation, you might have we'll say a math chip, but actually, no, these are all skills that come into a circumstance. So in all these things, they can grow. The moment we say, well, that's how he is, do two things. You want to really mess up your kids, two guaranteed ways to do it. Say to yourself over and over, that's how he or she is. Okay. Or back up. That's a phase they're going through. Okay. So if you think that way, imagine how trapped you are, and you can't parent, you can't lead, you can't do anything, because gosh, that's how they are. And they're going through a phase. I mean, goodness, God made them this little hellion. It's not my fault. And so instead of personality development, I'd call it character development. It's not that they have a personality disorder. They have a character disorder. So character means learning to be disciplined. Discipline is when you itch, but don't scratch. Yeah, my itch is complain, but I don't. And I just get it done. You have to learn that. If you ever go to a symphony, you just have to learn how not to shout like you're at a football game. It's a thing. And so you need a symphony personality. You can go to a football game, have a football game personality. We're going to need a homeschooling personality. We're going to need a go do service projects personality. We're going to need a giggle box turned over personality. We're having fun. So all these things are skills and convictions or desires in our head about what's going to feel good here, what's going to be worthwhile, what's going to be meaningful, as far as all that goes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I felt very preachy right then. So here's another one. Any tips regarding college admissions for homeschoolers? And if your kids were younger, what would you do regarding college these days, considering how political and activism centered it's become? So it's a great question that I've thought a bit about, though I do agree the environment now is really a mess. Okay. So here's what you do. You either have to find a college, my hand's right, find a college that is a match with your values and their standards and what they're teaching and all is pretty solid. And there are colleges inside of colleges, obviously. And so, I'd stay away from like sociology or certain studies, American studies. I mean, some of them are interesting to take class in, but they're very ideological in terms of their agenda. They're playing fast and loose with information, with facts and truth, like utopian type weirdo thinking, just honestly. So you find a school that's decent, and there are ones out there, and capitalism is still something. So a lot of these schools are either going to repent or die, or there are schools that are not as well known but are going to grow because they're getting better and better at that kind of stuff. The other thing you can do is help your child find a subculture to belong to in one of these schools. So we had 4 boys that went to the University of Texas in Austin, which we fondly referred to as University of Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's a Texas thing. So, but inside of that game, the oldest got involved with a campus ministry called Crew. And then as the brothers came in, they were introduced to friends, and they were all involved in that. And so they had a subculture, as we taught our kids, you'll never be like the people you don't hang around. So you're going to need to make sure you're picky about your friends. If you don't want to be smart, don't hang around smart people. If you don't want to be like, if you want to be in jail, you need to be around people who get in jail a lot, you know? So that's the game. So inside of a college, there are, if they're encouraged to find the right kind of friends, there are people there, and they insulate us, and it's no different than life, you know, the same thing, you know. It's a, if you hang around barflies, what do you expect? So there's that game. Getting ready for school though, or getting in, how'd she say this? How'd Callie say it? College admission for homeschoolers. Yeah. So college admission for homeschoolers, even though they know we do well, the whole system's quite biased, not just against us, all kinds of things. You know, honestly, if you're the worst thing you can be right now in America is, I'd say a white male, but probably a Southern, maybe rural, small town white male. That's like the worst of the worst. Because
and they're Christian.
Yeah, I throw in Christianity, you know, stuff like that. Um, all that stuff that's not the environment we're enjoying right now. So what your kids have to do and catch on to, one is, I would say, be sure and see college as an opportunity for skill development. So find a curriculum and a game that you can enjoy, you find meaningful to work on your skills. So it doesn't have to be just a job, something you'll get a job with. But if they're not motivated, they're not going to do well. This is the nature of humans. And so in that orientation or understanding of college admission and what you're trying to do, you're really wanting to set up what it's going to take to get in. So what it's going to take to get in is your child needs to be a good student. They need to be articulate. They need to be emotionally stable, well-balanced. Ideally, they need to do well on their SAT/ACT while they're still taking those things. The grades you can sort of fix in a way, but they need to earn those grades. And that's it. And what you do is you apply to a lot of places. There are services, people, if you can afford it, that can help you work on the strategy getting to school. All of our kids got in. They did pretty well on their SAT. But we had training courses they went to. They took lots of practice courses. One of them less, and gotten less of a school, but did great in the school and done great in life. So they had less of a school in terms of reputation, academic size, et cetera. But that's, you know, it's not exactly determinative. Ivy League right now, you know, I wanted to go to Amherst. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't even consider Amherst right now. For me personally. So understanding that game. The other thing I would say in prep, so figure out how you want them to graduate. You're trying to get them to have a good SAT score. They really like outside activities,
A lot of volunteer
stuff, a lot of balance in the education too. So if they've done language, the things that are kind of required.
Other things they've been involved in, sports or theater, or just well-rounded person.
Yeah. So all those involvements matter. These kids learning to write well, like that essay is important. The writing course, I think, was a big savior for our kids, lots of other kids. The other courses we have was one of the emotions course on helping them emotionally stable, relationship courses in there, memory course, how they do better as a student, problem solving course, so they can solve problems, reading course, so they get better at reading comprehension, writing course I mentioned. So all those things are really designed to get them to succeed in college, but having those things in play can affect college if there are interviews, et cetera. That go with it. But by and large, some degree, you probably have to do current time research maybe consultant, somebody that knows the game, because that's the problem. It's a game, and you ought to teach your kids that as well. College is a game. Every class is a game. You're going to go in that professor's classroom, and they have a way that game's played, and you need to play it that way. If they want essays written a certain way, then sorry, write that way, even though you know better. Because here it gets fair. When you're a professor, you can make up your own game, and it'll go glorious. But understanding the game of getting in is a ongoing research project. I get so choked up about college. But
I mean, it can start with a friend that has kids a little bit older than your kids that have done this. Okay, what did you do to get them in there and all? And when I'm talking about also well-rounded, I'm not talking about signing your kid up for a million things. Not at all. Just do they do something? Are they involved in their youth group? Are they involved in scouts? Are they involved in some music thing or an arts thing or a sports thing? But not at all. I thought it might come across like, oh, they got to do a million things and they all have to be on there. No.
Exactly. That's exactly it. All right, gang. This is a pretty good shot at some really great discussion. I just want to encourage you to keep the faith, focus on growing happy adults. They may not be happy all the time as kids, but there's not a correlation with that. When they can learn wisdom, when they can learn to control their emotions, when they can learn how to play the game, when they learn to teach themselves stuff, when they learn to think for themselves. Probably next week I'm going to be gone, so we're not around. But even teaching a child to argue both sides of any view, that makes them way above most everyone else in terms of interactions and wisdom and sanity. Most of the problems we have right now is we have sides that are mad at each other and neither can articulate the other view. So like I like to say, hey, first understand, then disagree. Works in marriage, works in parenting, works in business, works in politics. When you're caught in a interaction with somebody who simply doesn't understand any other view, there's not much of a way to go. So we'll talk more about that down the road. Anyway, hope you have an amazing weekend. God bless.